Cynthia
Present.
and Erwin,
Present.
and I'm Vince Carlson, present. And it sounded like Megan was going to join us shortly, so we'll hope she joins.
Yep, she said present,
Sure.
so
Okay.
great, thank you.
So the first thing on the agenda is our next meetings here. And so that'll apply from April provisionally through June. Typically after April, we try to change the guard or keep the guard in terms of the committee assignments here. But depending maybe on how we end up discussing the mission statement, we may end up doing that in June. But in any case, if we can do April, May, and June, that would be good at this time.
We talked about April 8th. I don't know if that's still what we're looking at.
Okay, so that's going to be the first
And we
Monday.
also talked about May 26th. I'm just looking at my schedule.
Mhm.
Oh,
And then we did not schedule June's.
Right.
Did you say the 26th or the 20th of May?
May 26th. 20th, sorry.
That's what I had.
Yep, because we tried to do the 13th, but that's Carlisle's town meeting in
Right,
May.
right.
Yep,
Yeah.
right.
okay.
Okay. And June? Just in case, first Monday?
Well, we're meeting the 20th, so that would be a little early.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's true. Okay.
I'd say the 10th or the 17th.
Both work
Now,
for me.
traditionally, we've gone on hiatus after June, so that would end up being our last meeting until September.
So let's do June 17 or
That's good with me.
Sure.
Okay. So next item is minutes. And I had circulated, I hope that everybody has gotten it, the minutes for November 2nd, because they were missing previously. I think it got posted late. I'm not quite sure, but anyway, that should round out the minutes for 2023, because we did previously go through the December, September, and October minutes. Provisionally, there were some updates to those, which I still haven't done and posted up to the website. But the minutes for November are relatively short. It was a relatively short meeting. There was a executive session at the end that was not, well, it was conveniently edited, in the version that got posted on YouTube. And that didn't happen with January of this year. So the January ones for 2024 are still in process, because the transcript and the summary that I got back were still included those. So I was hoping to sit down with Megan and kind of review that before, we try to finish them up. But in any case, if you had a chance to look at the November 2nd minutes, these are largely AI generated and probably as concise as minutes could be, and still meet the open meeting law requirements. So if anybody has any comments, there's a couple of, I think, small points that I've noticed, but it seems that it's a fairly good summary of the agenda items then.
So we do need to add the reason that we entered into executive session. In the
Yeah.
minutes, right?
Yeah, and
Mhm.
yeah, that we can add.
Okay. And then you need to list the roll call. And then you say, and in the motion, you need to list a motion. Even if there wasn't one made, you're gonna need to list the reason to go into open meeting law. And then we did not return to open session.
Right. Yeah, let me just make a note of where we, yeah, it's on the second page there where it says it was adjourned to an existing contract. So I'll include the reason there.
And you have to
Chapter
list the roll call.
and the roll call.
Mhm. And I think you should remove the links at the bottom.
Say that again?
The links you have in there.
Oh, yes. Did it work? Did anybody try it?
Try what?
The link.
But the town clerk does not typically put links in minutes.
Oh, okay. All right. Yes, as a matter of fact, what I hope is that Jason, to get your thoughts and also Megan on sitting down with the town clerk and just reviewing more or less where we stand with this potential to automate the minutes, more broadly. And I think, at one end of the spectrum, I don't think anybody should be required to utilize any of the Zoom companion features if they're not comfortable with it. And, to my knowledge, the person that I know that has kept the most perfect minutes in the past is Ruth Lauer. And Cynthia, I don't know if you know her, she's kind of an old timer in town government.
Well,
She was.
Number of competitors for that, but we'll leave that for another day. But yeah, I think we just need to remove the links from the minutes.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so done.
So either we can make a motion to review, to approve the minutes as
Right.
edited, or however we want to phrase it, or we can look at another version at the next meeting. So that's up to the chair.
Well, no, let's go ahead. I'd like to wrap up the year here. The thing that is not still wrapped up are the June minutes, and I just haven't had a chance to sit down with Carl, and those were the ones that had garbled audio. But there was really only two significant items that took place at that meeting. One is that new officers were appointed, and that was in June of 2023 when the torch passed from Carlin to me. And then the second one was the awards, for MMN staff. And she has the list of what all of they are, although I also have them. So, it's going to be pretty straightforward to do that. I just haven't had time to compare notes with Carlin. So as soon as I can do that, we will finish off on June. So we're having a motion to approve the minutes.
The
So
minutes,
moved.
right, but the minutes as we've discussed, the edits.
Yeah, that's the alterations. Okay, so Cynthia,
Aye.
Erwin,
Aye.
Vince Carlson, aye. Megan is hearing us.
Aye.
Okay, so they are approved. And next we have MMN broadband update. I guess that's Julie and Jason.
So,
Yes.
Julie, do you want to start with some of your updates, and then I'll come in with anything you don't mention?
Sure.
Some stuff.
Yes, we've had a lot of activity in the studio with our students. First, we have a group of fifth grade boys from the Willard School that are doing a sports podcast. And they did their first show. They recorded their first podcast this week. The Weather Club came in for their first show, where they're going to be doing a weather broadcast here on Fridays. We had them in front of our green screen, and they did a full weather broadcast in front of the map with the temperatures and everything. And while they were here, we trained them on how to operate the camera. We also put them in the control room and showed them how to switch and kind of do the magic of the green screen. So hopefully they're going to be coming here frequently on Fridays. Next was the Chinese Club. I might have told you in my last report that we filmed the Lunar New Year event that took place here at the school. But it was, and that was filmed by students where we train them on our equipment. There was also a similar event at Carlisle Middle School, I believe. Again, a student used our equipment. And then last week, students came to the studio and did an interview. So we had 3 Chinese teachers and 1 student, and they spoke about the holiday and the events. Then those students from Chinese Club came back this week, and we taught them how to edit and put everything together. So this is a project that we're doing. And Tori Wisnowski, who's been recently promoted to our education coordinator, she's handling, all of the student engagement. So we're excited about that. And then outside of the studio, we're out in town and we're filming, of course, all of the public hearings leading up to town meeting. And we're also filming some candidate forums. And Megan is going to be hosting one of them that we're going to be having here in the studio. And we also did one already for the League of Women Voters, and we will be doing one at the COA. So those are the programming highlights.
Thank you. I just want to say that Julie and her team are doing such a fantastic job driving student engagement and teacher engagement too with the studio, and also working on outside productions. It's just so lovely to see so much local content. And also, I just love, Julie's philosophy of don't just have the kids go in the studio and film them. It's, teach the kids how to use the equipment and give them these skills. So it's just great. And then also just in terms of turnaround, I don't know how many public meetings everybody here watches, but I watch quite a few. And the time that it takes now for staff to get these meetings posted is much shorter. And so it means that on a Tuesday or Wednesday, I'm watching the Monday meetings, whereas sometimes before it had gone a little bit long. So I just really appreciate the effort there. The League of Women Voters meeting, I think, or the event was published that day or the day after. It was very quick. So
Yeah.
people have been commenting to me like how appreciative they are that they can catch up on those things, especially in this season where the budget and the hearings are going on. It's just super helpful. So thank you, Julie, and your team for
Great.
doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Question.
yeah, thank you very much.
Is that
sorry.
because of improved equipment or better staffing resources? Not saying
I
better.
would say process and staffing and just realigning focus, the combination of all those things.
Exactly.
We do hope that once we get our new broadcast equipment, there will be a smoother process from editing a meeting to posting it to multiple places at the same time. So there won't have to be kind of a re-encoding for YouTube or any other streaming service.
Mhm.
I wanted to mention there was a Zoom bombing at the Finance Committee meeting last night. I know Terry was there and experienced that. The police are involved. They're investigating this. It was obscenities and anti-Semitism and hate speech. People shared screens. And, this has happened once in Carlisle and once in Concord before recently. But this one, unfortunately, there were some control issues where it took a while to shut it down. So it was going for quite some time. It was not being broadcast on the channel for that period of time, but they kind of had to stop the meeting for quite a while to get a handle on it. But after the last incident, actually after the one in Carlisle, we kind of sent all of our recommendations on security and locking things down to the town manager's office to hopefully disseminate to board and committee members. you know, in our case, like if I weren't at this meeting and it was just the committee, nobody here would be the host. So if somebody showed up and started sharing their screen inappropriately, there'd be nobody who could actually remove them. And so we're trying to find ways to make sure that at least somebody in every meeting is designated as somebody who could enable those security features, because that's not always happening. And then also that they know how to do it quickly, and maybe know some of the warning signs. If you know, we kind of know the usual people here. If there were 4 more people with weird names, we probably would be a little on edge, maybe disable screen sharing and things like that. So we are working on that, and the police are investigating this. And then I just wanted, oh, go ahead.
Is it
please.
of getting the word out on that, Jason, so that all the committees kind of know how to turn it off?
Yeah, so Donna McIntosh is our communications manager. She's taking all that information and trying to synthesize it and disseminate it to the board and committee members. We have a unique problem, which is that we end up with these recordings that often have the Zoom bombing material in it. Our process that we've done and vetted by council is that we edit out anything that's going to violate the YouTube terms of service, and then we put a note at the beginning of the meeting and during any other part of the meeting where we have to mute or cut, and we just say that, you know, speech or graphics in this meeting violate YouTube terms of service, so they've been removed. But if you would like a full copy of the meeting, you can request it with an email address. And that way notifies people that meeting has been edited, but also provides an avenue if they really would like to request it as a public record, as long as it exists. So, and the retention on meeting recordings is actually only 6 months. So I actually had a conversation with the records manager today, because the record retention on historically significant videos is indefinite. So how bad does a Zoom bombing have to be until it becomes historic? That is the question. So anyway, I wanted to mention that we are on full gear for town meeting preparation. The staff will be having meetings and dry runs and start setting up equipment in the next few weeks to prepare for town meeting, coordinating with the school. We did go out to bid for the RFP, where Thistle was the vendor last year, Boston Light and Sound the years before. We didn't get any successful respondents to the RFP. Thistle did respond, but it wasn't a successful response. So it's going to be reissued, and hopefully they can get a quick turnaround and get a good vendor in quickly. We will meet with them once they're selected and kind of go through the process and talk about any findings from last year. Carmen Reese, the town moderator, does a great debriefing after a town meeting, and so we always take notes and make, you know, find recommendations to improve the process or what went wrong. So we've got some of that information. As Julie mentioned, the hearing schedule, we've got the enterprise hearing next week, and there are 2 more hearings or 1? I know we've had the planning board. We have
There's 2.
2 more, yeah.
Yeah, there's one on one.
Yeah. Also, a lot of procurement. So I mentioned the broadcast equipment. So Julie is working with Gail Dowd, who's our procurement interim procurement manager, on trying to get a request for quote process done on that. We are working on some changes to the public meeting room at CMLP. That would enable us to use that as a location to film meetings or trainings or other events. And then also the townhouse renovations. So we have kind of talked to Carrie LaFleur, town manager, about her thoughts on the room, and everybody's kind of doing some homework. They're looking at carpet, ways to increase and improve the acoustics in that room, because it has been a big challenge in the past. And then also just however they're going to orient the room, whether they're going to change where the podium is and where the table is, if they're going to kitty corner it, put it to one side or the other. We just want to make sure that all of our cameras and projector screen and TVs and everything are going to be visible to the audience and to the members who might sit at the table. So working with them on that, and then hopefully once we get all the requirements pinned down, we can then get some vendors in to take a look at what would be required. MMN really is just going to be focusing on the AV in the room, you know, microphones, speakers, cameras, TVs, anything like drapes, curtains, carpet, things, you know, in the ceiling, that would be done by the facilities budget, the town manager's office budget. I think other than the budget, which we'll talk about as a separate item, that's all I had. So are there any questions or follow-up items on any of those things, Vince?
One of the things on the town meeting, I know Carmen had mentioned a couple of chairs breakfasts ago about captioning. And, you know, it's, I think mainly the screens in the front of the room, and of course what goes out. over, the broadcast channel on Comcast. And is there,
So yeah, I mean, there's a couple easy things we might be able to do. Number one, we know that the stenographer's output goes to a TV in the room. If we can grab that output, we could possibly do a picture-in-picture thing or overlay it on the image. If we stream to a service like YouTube that does live captioning, that might be provided for people if they watch it there. But in terms of the channel this year, unless we're taking that output, it's not gonna happen from MMN's perspective. But once we replace our broadcast equipment, there would be the capability to add captioning. You basically pay for a block of hours each year, and so you don't necessarily caption everything, but you caption all the things that are, highly watched or highly visible, or things that where there's going to be a live engagement. So maybe Julie, you can talk to Matt about the possibility, because he's definitely familiar with the setup, just to see if that's something we could grab. The HDMI is going to 2 TVs that are in the room today. So if we can grab that, is there any way we could overlay that on the broadcast, just on the broadcast for TV? We wouldn't necessarily need to send it to YouTube or other streaming services.
Okay.
yeah, I know that one of the issues that Carmen had raised about in the past is the person that was actually doing that captioning up front, actually, I think was a court stenographer, in the past, rather than just a, kind of a paid caption person. But that she didn't have rights to the captioning afterwards. And I don't know exactly in what context that they would have been used afterwards, but it was something that she seemed to be concerned about. So
yeah, I think under this scenario, if anything, they would only go out on the initial broadcast. They wouldn't be rebroadcast, because we would have alternative mechanism to add captions or, so, but that's something we can look into just to find out who owns the rights to that.
Does anybody else have any questions for Jason?
Just have a couple things. So yeah, Julie, thank you so much. I just want to again say how impressed I am with you and Tori, and how easy it is to work with you, and how for somebody who does a lot of filming, to have somebody who has like technical skills and people skills, it's just amazing to have that. So thank you so much. And so we are going to do the Q&A, and so the PTGs have all sent that out, the looking for questions, and they mentioned Minuteman Network. So we're getting a lot more word out with the parent teacher groups and the parent associations as far as that's concerned. And then I was with as one my role as on the board for the middle school PTG is we get to talk to the principal once a month, and he was saying something about when they open the middle school, they would like to do what they did when they reopened with COVID, which is like film social stories, as far as like getting the kids in and, this is how you order lunch, and this is how and I'm wondering, is that something that you guys would do? And if so, would A, am I overwhelming you? And B, is that, who would I connect?
No, we can talk about that, definitely. What would be the time frame for that?
So they're not opening until February next year, right, Cynthia? So February next year is their planned opening. And then, so he was saying that it wouldn't be anything soon, but
Sure.
it would be something that they're planning for now.
Okay, that sounds good.
So just
Yes, we can
connect.
help with that.
Okay, got it. All right. Well, I'll connect Tori then, and you and
Okay, yeah,
Justin.
we can talk about it offline.
That sounds
Definitely.
good.
That sounds like a fun project.
It sounds like a really fun project. Yeah.
Anybody else have anything for Julie or Jason? Oh, Jason, there is one other thing that I thought about, and Julie, and that's the Patriots Day coverage. Is there?
Yeah, Julie, do you want to talk about? I can tell you what we've done in years past, but Julie, I don't know. Have you guys already had conversations about what's
We
planned
have
yet?
not, we have
Okay.
not we haven't received a request from anybody formally to cover it, but I'd love to hear what was done last year.
Yeah, I mean, typically we had Matt, Tori, and a videographer out in the field. They'd be shooting B-reel stuff. They'd be covering the main parades and other sort of big events, and then usually that's edited into a video. Obviously, the length depends on the events and what's there. It's not necessarily hours long. Sometimes they're just a few minutes, or it could be 15, 20 minutes. But that just encapsulates what happened, the big takeaways, and the groups that might be marching, or the parade route and everything. So I can send you some links on what we've done in previous years, but
Okay.
it's kind of a fun time, and there's a lot of great B-reel that ends up being shot that people turn into screensavers or put into other videos or outros or things. So
Okay, so it's filmed that day and then edited later for broadcast?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. And then we can also, this would be a good practice run for next year, which will be obviously a very big event. And
Mhm.
that coverage will, I'm sure, be different than any other year we've ever done, but at least understanding kind of where the key players are and where things are moving around might help you or understand as we go through the planning of the 250th.
Okay, sounds good.
I know that
Coming from Lexington, I'm definitely familiar with the Patriots Day Parade.
yeah, I know that the 250th committee or committees that are responsible, kind of are planning for that kind of test run, as you said, Jason. What's really, pending or planned for coverage, on the 250th?
So, I mean, a lot is still pending. I think that once we get through town meeting and identify more funding sources, this is when we're going to start ramping up, is this fall and winter. So, we in the past have attended some of the various meetings. We are plugged in from the town side. I'd say the town planning and preparations have been going on for quite a while. I've been looped into the public safety conversations. We've met with many, many agencies to talk about the routes. The GIS team that I manage is also involved in creating applications, maps, and helping with road closure, processes and things like that. So I think we're all kind of plugged in on a loose level, but I would say the aggressive planning of like, okay, these people need to be in this spot has not started, but I've heard they're applying for permits to get some limited locations in the park and make sure that we have access to certain areas. I think that the FBI, Secret Service, Homeland Security, those people are starting to come to some of the meetings. And I think that will help us understand what resources are going to be where and where it's a good place for us to have a vantage point. But none of the committees have announced like, here's the schedule, here's the time that this will happen, and we obviously need that to plan. So we just want to be aware of what they're trying to fit in there to understand what resources we will have and will need. And as we talk about the budget, one of the things we're trying to get in there is to get a vehicle. It's a production van that would be able to carry equipment around to help us be mobile for events like this. I think that would be a huge help. Having mobile power. Go ahead, Vince.
Oh, no, I was just changing my view on the screen here.
Okay, it says you raised your hand.
Oh, yeah. Let me take that down. Yeah, as I said, my iPad is wobbling around a little bit here.
All right, are there any other questions?
Okay, well, then let's move on to item 4, item 5, which is the budget for fiscal 25.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. Can you guys see this? Vince,
Yep.
can you see this? Yep, okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So I did email this to everyone, just before the meeting, so you have a copy and you can look at it a little bit closer or zoom in where you need to during the meeting. Presented this before, and I just want to highlight some of the key changes that are in this version from the last version. What I mentioned, what was still pending was a lot of the initial information about the fund balance and revenue and net profit or loss was still TBD because we were waiting for a lot of information from accounting and finance. In October of this fiscal year, we converted accounting systems from admins to Munis. So that makes numbers for this year very difficult. But we did obviously bring in balances, but everything wasn't a one-to-one for the crosswalk. And so it was just kind of difficult in this process. I'm sure next year will be much easier. We've also had a lot of turnover in finance staff. And I don't believe 23 has been audited yet. So that also plays a role in figuring out exactly what, if the ending balance of 23 is going to be the beginning balance of 24, and that hasn't been verified yet. So anyway, I got some numbers from the town accountant last week. They were clearly not correct, so I asked for some clarification. She explained that she did have some more work to do, but we had a pretty good estimate of where we are today. I worked with the town manager to get a number that she felt was pretty confident for starting fiscal 24, which helped kind of plug in the fund balance. As of today, the fund balance is about $1.9 million, according to the town accountant. But that does not include some things that have been already expended that have not had journal entries made. So she was hesitant for me to put on paper, like today's fund balance. And we don't normally do that anyway, but just so that the committee is aware of where we are. In general, we've been optimistic about what we can do with the budget, but the real story is that we can't always hire people on day one of the fiscal year. We can't always, spend certain money or buy certain equipment because either there's challenges with procurement or there's, equipment that we need isn't ready or there's a prerequisite in the project. So the fund balance does continue to grow, even though we were pretty aggressive with our capital planning last year. So those numbers are on here, and I'll show you where those live. They are down here under net income, and then available resources and fund balance forecast. So basically what this shows here is that the fund balance is expected to start fiscal 25 at 1.78 million. And then with all of the spending and everything afterward would end up at just at 1.6 million. And just for reference, 1.6 million was where we were supposed to have started last year. So we're even with the capital of 142,000, we're pretty much going to be where we thought we were last year. So that's good. We're not burning through cash. I think that the story here for the finance committee's enterprise hearing will be that things are looking good, that, we're not bleeding money. We're not spending too much money. The other thing I'll draw your attention to is the profit loss of the net income of 65,000 in the negative. So I will point out that includes one budgeted position at 68,000 that's unfilled. And we're not quite sure what we're going to be doing with that position, if it's going to morph into something else, if we're not going to fill it, if we're going to use contractors, increase our videographers. So, in terms of actual cost today, we would be breaking even or be less than that. And that also includes some benefits that we are not sure will be elected. So we feel like that's a very conservative number in a worst case scenario under the budget. But realistically, we thought we were going to be about in the same place last year, and we're projecting to be about 12,000 in the positive. So again, I think that represents a worst case scenario. And that's kind of the story that I'll tell at the enterprise hearing, is that we're trying to be aggressive with what we're doing. We're getting a lot of engagement. We want to be able to support staff and the people with the equipment that we need. But realistically, we are not as able to spend all the money that we're appropriating and as a quasi-enterprise fund or revolving fund, this money stays in the fund balance for PEG access. So this does not go to the general fund. I'll draw your attention to just a few other changes that were made in the budget. I know this is incredibly small. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I know I lose a little bit on the side over here. Some of the takeaways were Erwin had suggested advertising, marketing, materials like that. We have a line called advertising down here, but advertising for this object code 5383 is advertising for job positions. It's like recruitment basically. So it's not advertising, getting pens and things like that. So this really refers to if we have a vacancy and we need to advertise for the position, or there are costs associated with hiring, that's what is coming out of advertising. So the lines that we're using to track that are the uniforms, which would be, vests and things that have the town seal on them, or that have Minuteman Media's. I think Julie's rocking some MMN gear right now. You can see her shirt. So anything clothing related, or skirts for tables, or things that have our logo on it. And then also this printing line here would be anything from pens and pads to magnets to signs to whatever. And so we increased those substantially. So we got 3,000 in that line, and then 2,000 in this line. So 5,000, which represents kind of a fivefold increase over the previous year, because we had just 1,000 allocated for that last year. So Erwin, I think that's a great suggestion, and a good way to build community engagement is to make sure that people know who we are, where we are, and how they can get to us. So we will definitely work on using that. We also have actually $1,000 laying around from Comcast when they changed our channel. The contract we have with them says that they will give us up to $1,000 for materials that can be used to get that information out.
Jason, do we, for example, if we wanted, I'm just thinking an example of like with the municipal light people, if we wanted to, I don't know if they would, but let's make believe they would want to put a stuffer in the bill promoting MMN. Does that mean, could we do that, or no, we have to, that line item only goes for, t-shirts. We can't do any printing.
Yeah, so when we do the budget, this is our best guess approximation, but all of these individual lines can be overexpended as long as we don't overexpend the entire bottom line. So yeah, so if we're light in uniform stuff and we're heavy in printing, or vice versa, there's not an issue there.
Okay.
Terry, you've got a question?
Yes, it seems like an opportunity here. We have maybe some surplus funds, which is really exciting. The 250th committee is desperately looking for more funds. And I know Minuteman Media will be doing some efforts for the 250th. Is there any way that some of these line items or another line item could be added to spend money on recording or helping out the 250th, and you might get it back? There might be revenue coming in from there, but we have to lay out the money in advance now in this budget. So is there any way we can do that?
Yeah, well, I think, from our perspective, we're planning on using all of the resources that we have to cover that, which includes paying people, using equipment we already have, and buying new equipment, and buying a vehicle that will help with all of that. So we're going to expend that money already as planned in this budget. I guess I'm unclear as to what beyond that you would be referring to.
Well, I'm not sure either. I guess I thought of it when you were talking about advertising. There's some events that are going to be broadcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the parade and all kinds of school events and all. So where are those events showing up in your budget? Or are they in the 250th budget?
So those events are, when you look at the capital costs for equipment and you look at the personnel costs for paying people to work events, that's where those costs are. And then, I think I would also say that the Cable Act is pretty strict as to what we can spend our money on. We couldn't just like take $100,000 and put it in a fund to be used for the 250th. It would have to be directly related to coverage of events. And again, we're happy to use our resources to cover this important event. I've never been asked by anybody about like something specific that we could do outside of what we're going to do already. So but I'm open to it, of course.
Okay, let me try one more way. I see this line called part-time staff. Are you
Yep.
going to have extra staff on call or overtime or whatever during the month of April of 2025, right? Is
Yes.
that this part-time staff here or temporary?
Yeah, so the last 2 previous years, you'll see nothing in that line, and that's just because it got lumped in incorrectly. So the regular full-time you'll see drops by from the 361 to the 312, and that's just because this was pulled out of that and appropriately put in the right bucket. But yes, so this part-time staff includes so we basically took what we used last year, we took what we're using so far this year, and we increased that to make sure that we could have all of our people essentially working any events that happen surrounding the 250th.
Right, but if I add up those 2 lines, it's still only equaling 363,000, the same as you spent last year. I'm just thinking, if you have all these extra events, aren't you going to need extra overtime, extra part-time staff, or?
Yeah, we didn't expend nearly. So we basically had 4 videographers working 19 hours a week in the budget last year, and the reality is that we had 1 videographer working about 8 to 14 hours a week, and then all the others only showed up at town meeting. So we way over budgeted last year.
Okay,
This year we tried to be a little bit more accurate, but also factor in that we have 2 more videographers now than we did before, and that they're all going to work to support the event. So we definitely built in a lot more than we need for a normal year to
Great.
accommodate that.
okay, thank you.
Jason, is there a limitation on the part-time videographer hours, because of benefits or anything of that nature?
Yeah, 19 hours a week on average. So you can go over in a particular week, but you can't go over for an extended period of time. So that month of the 250th, we will be going over most likely for some of our videographers, but as long as it averages under 19 hours a week for a significant portion of the year, we'll be fine.
Has that limitation been an issue relative to, really being able to get good people, or being able to, I guess get people familiar enough with MMN specifically, that they know how to get up to speed,
Right.
walk in the door that morning?
It is a challenge, and it's a line we try to walk carefully, because you can't have 1 full-time videographer and put all your eggs in that basket, because that person is going to go on vacation, they're going to be sick, they're going to be unable to work certain meetings, and a lot of our events are after hours and on weekends. So we have elected to have just kind of a wider pool of people that will ensure that we can get somebody to cover every event. But absolutely, it would be nice to be able to have a full-time person that we could rely on, that could become really proficient in things, and that could cover and do more than just, be a videographer. So, this is the approach we've taken so far. I think that it's adequate, but I think that, in an ideal world, we'd have a blend of both, maybe 1 full-time and then a few part-time people, just to make sure that we have coverage. But obviously the full-time person is going to eat up benefit costs and have times when they're not available. So, I think it's just a matter of the staff, and that's why I mentioned that position that we kind of left in the budget that's unfilled now. That's one of the things that Julie and I have been talking about, is what to do with the videographers or that function? Do we convert somebody to full-time? Do we keep it, all part-time staff? It's definitely, some places do it both ways. So, Julie, do you have anything to add, or did I encapsulate that correctly?
No, you encapsulated that correctly. The busy is ebb and flows.
Right.
So.
Yeah, we have very busy months, and then we have lighter months where, during the summer, committees don't meet as often because they're taking time off, and there definitely is fewer hours, for periods of time. Now, that doesn't mean there's not work. It just means there's fewer government meetings and maybe fewer events that we're covering. But
the one improvement that we made that's been really nice is our superstar videographer, Arkady. Not only is he covering the nighttime meetings, but we have him coming in during the day as well. And we've taught him our whole editing workflow. So that gives him more hours, and it helps us tremendously in terms of how quickly we can turn around our meetings and post them onto YouTube. So it's not just production time, it's editing time too. So we're getting him to his 19 hours a week.
I'll draw your attention to the other change that was made for the capital, and that was, similar to the conversation we had last year, which was, let's not leave the fund balance at, $2 million, because Comcast isn't going to continue to negotiate and be competitive with the capital offerings. And knowing that we need that studio equipment to work, knowing that we need a vehicle to help out with the 250th and some other things. So what we've done is we moved the vehicle up to this fiscal year. We also split the studio equipment into 2 years and added 70,000 for this year. And the other two items were there already. So basically it's just more for the studio equipment and then the vehicle that was changed for this year. And so, last year was about 135, this year is 142. We don't anticipate next year being that high, but obviously we'll look at that. We'll keep track of the fund balance. We'll see how the contract is settled with Comcast and what that does for us. Is it going to give us any one-time, infused capital, or is it going to be annual? And what is that amount going to be? And then what's great is that Sue and her team and Randy did an excellent job at forecasting capital needs for us. And so we now have those documents that we can use to say, what is it going to cost each year to replace this? Or when is this piece of equipment going to be, need to be replaced? And Terry, you've got a question?
Yes, I'm just thinking if Comcast sees this, I'm not sure that they will, but you might want to add in 27 and 28 some more studio equipment and computer replacement and whatever, so they don't think we have zero needs there, because we are asking for money for those years, right? For capital. Right. Thanks.
Yeah, we have not really put in the 28 number, and some of the 27 came out as a result of trying to do more next year. So that's definitely a good suggestion. Erwin?
Now, is the vehicle purely for transport, or do you see it as having some sort of permanent equipment there? You can use it as a little bit of a portable studio.
Oh yeah, absolutely, portable studio.
Okay.
We talked about like the need for protecting really expensive equipment with the need for it being useful to go, when somebody needs to go somewhere. So we probably would have, we wouldn't keep our $5,000 HD 4K cameras, on the front seat, but in terms of cabling, rigging, stands, generator, things like that, we'd have all that ready to go in the van, and it would definitely be a production van. It's not just to drive humans around, for sure. In fact, we had a car in the past bought by the deputy town manager that was just inadequate. So this would definitely be bigger, be able to take microphone stands and the portable PA equipment, all that stuff around.
And there'd be a switcher in the vehicle?
Yeah. There'd be equipment in there that we could use. Now, we might not operate the switcher from the vehicle depending on the particular location, but it would be ready and available to do that.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, because it really does give a lot more flexibility. Just in a lot of ways. That's great. And so the vehicle itself, is that 55 for the vehicle, or is that 55 for the vehicle and whatever modifications need to get done for like cabinetry or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah, yep. So the vehicles we were looking at were in the low 40s to mid 40s, and so this would be the vehicle plus the ability to add
Right.
some equipment and structures inside to make sure that we can
Right.
use it. I was going
It'll
to say
be an
something
EV as well, so it can just self-power itself.
Yeah, so that's the goal, right? So the town has an
Yeah.
EV first policy. So we would obviously follow the policy and work with Eric Sims, the sustainability director, to go through the procurement of the vehicle. And it's basically just, laying out the needs and the requirements, finding out what's available. And it goes from battery electric vehicle to plug-in hybrid to
Right.
gasoline to diesel. So we definitely follow that. Regardless of if the EV can power, the stuff in the back, we would look at getting battery generators that
Sure.
would not emit, fumes and be loud and obnoxious during these productions. We've got one in broadband, and it works fantastic for our application. And they've become ubiquitous and long lasting. So, and also equipment has become more efficient. Lights are LED now, and the
Yeah.
power draw is smaller, so you can get many hours out of a battery, and it's quiet and it doesn't emit any noise or fumes.
That's fantastic. So do you project that'll be in place by the end of the year?
The calendar year, yeah, that's our goal.
Good, perfect.
Yeah, once town meeting votes to appropriate the funds, we can start the procurement process right away, as long as we don't sign any contracts or agreements before July 1st and just get
Right,
ready.
okay.
So
Yep.
that's what we would try to do.
Awesome.
And we did look at some dealerships that had some of the Ford e-Transits
Right,
in
yeah.
stock, and found kind of the sweet spot of what we were looking at. So we priced everything
There's
out.
three different sizes. I'm not sure which size you're gonna want, but yeah.
Right. Yeah, we probably need to send Julie and Matt at least to go take a look at them and
Yeah.
with a tape measure and just kind of figure out what do we need for bodies and for equipment and where will things go. And we also can talk to some of our partners that already have production vans, because I know a lot of them do.
Yeah, a lot of other stations have them.
Another item that I don't know exactly how you build it into the budget, or what wiggle room you have, but in regard to both the prison closing and the 250th, and even the routine Patriots Day ceremonies, I noticed, for instance, when MassDOT made their presentations, that was covered on all of the networks in Boston, the local news hours there, and they were covering the Route 2 with what appeared to be some stock footage. And I don't know if it was footage that they owned and had previously done with their helicopter Cineflex setups, or if they bought it. But of course, the alternative to a helicopter Cineflex is a drone. So the thought, and I think I mentioned it to both you and Julie, is the possibility of getting a drone for MMN, to use for that type of purpose. And there's kind of a very broad range of drones in terms of their capabilities and pricing. So, I guess it could be anywhere from a few $1,000s to, $50,000 or more if you were getting, a fancy commercial drone that was a pretty heavy one. But is that something that, that is a potential there for getting built into the budget?
Yeah, no, we already had a drone in the budget, and it's been appropriated in the past for capital. So we were planning on doing that. We obviously, as we mentioned, we have to be careful about flying around Hanscom and the prison. Those are both no-fly zones around there. Hanscom is obviously like very serious. The prison, it's not as far as Hanscom in terms of a no-fly zone, but it still can't fly over it. and we have to notify them if we aren't going to fly anywhere remotely close to it. I know the police had flown a drone at CMLP. They did notify both the Northeast Correction Center and MCI Concord that they were flying it at that time. But yes, absolutely, we do have one staff member who has her pilot's license, and I know we had talked about another one getting his, or both, or all of you, I don't know. But yeah, absolutely. I think that would help with covering events and getting some good footage.
One thing I noticed when I was looking into that the stock footage is a potential revenue source, because if you buy stock footage, video footage, it looks like, first of all, it's priced by the second, which gives an indication that the bill is going to rise. So, it looks like if you were buying a few minutes of stock footage that was really, rather unique, people could be paying $1,000 for that. And there seems that there's quite a bit of opportunity, particularly, when you consider Concord as a tourist attraction, but, even in regard to Patriots Day and the 250th is, we have the Minutemen in both Concord and the surrounding towns like Lexington. We have the parade routes. We have Walden Pond. We have the other scenic attractions, North Bridge, that attract tourists. And having the stock footage that was available for them, for instance, even for the Patriots Day, you could be doing stock footage of the Concord Minutemen there to use for the 250th. It's the same people, different time. But, in terms of having editorial flexibility, that could be a potential both ways for both coverage and possibly revenue.
I can't imagine that a municipality could get into the business of selling stock footage. I can't, that just sounds very wrong to me. I'm not an attorney, but yeah, no. Especially when it has this, national park in it. That's not our, that's not our property. So that sounds like a pretty slippery slope, in my opinion. But
yeah, I don't know. It would be worth looking into. I think I'm not sure. What the limitation.
I know I've learned that the town owns the bridge itself. So we've heard that if they won't give us a permit to film certain things, we can always stand on the bridge and say, you can't get us off of here. We own this bridge.
that's
Well,
interesting.
regardless, it would be good to have stock footage. I mean, it's a good
Right,
project
and we do.
during a
Yeah, we do.
downtime of staff
Right.
to just collect
Yeah,
that.
we do. Yeah, absolutely. And they have done that. Tori and Matt have done a great job collecting. So every time we do edit those Patriots Day parades or events, like, all that footage goes into a folder that is like, can be harvested later for something. So no need
Okay.
to reinvent the wheel. So yeah, so I think that right now, what we'd be looking for is the committee to vote to recommend the budget with fiscal 27 and 28 capital budget projections to be included, because it won't affect this year's budget. So I don't think that we necessarily need to give a number today, but we will do that so that at the enterprise hearing that we have something in there, so that if Comcast takes a look at it or sees it published in the packet, that they'll know that we
So
do.
you'll use Sue's numbers for 27, 28?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
I mean, we had numbers too. We had other projects that we had
Okay.
kicking on our tenure, and we'll just make sure that we have, because I mean, realistically, based on the conversations, Comcast is moving more to an annual model rather than an upfront lump sum
Right.
model. It's less borrowing and less cost to the customers. So it would be good to have an annual capital plan, for everything we need to replace in a given year. So we'll fill that in with the numbers that Sue and Randy came up with.
Do you need a motion from us to approve the budget? Is that?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve the budget to be presented to the town.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second, is that good enough language for you, Jason?
I think so.
Okay, we can have a vote. Cynthia,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
Megan,
Aye.
and Vince, I say aye. So I believe you have a budget there.
So yeah, so the next steps are to present the budget to the enterprise, at the enterprise hearing for the finance committee on the 21st. And then, you know, the moderator will be watching and listening to that conversation. Last year, the PEG budget was on the consent calendar. So, you know, what we want are good questions and discussion without a lot of concerns expressed at that meeting. And if that's the case, then she will likely put it on the consent calendar again this year as an enterprise and without any dire concerns. Usually that's what happens. And then at town meeting, it would be approved. And July 1st, this would be our budget. So that's kind of the next steps. Julie, did you have a question or were you just celebrating?
Yeah. I was looking for the clap, but we don't have a
Yes.
clap, it's just a hand.
All right, go ahead, Vince.
Well, I don't know if it will come up at the hearings. I think it is, you know, worth noting that that fund is sequestered there for use of MMN. So it is not dipping into the town or I think there seemed to be a little bit more of an issue sometimes with the Beatty Center. I think that they, who was it originally they had a kitty of to draw from, but you know, it really amounted to kind of drawing into a bond or a kind of a debt pool that they had allocated for that. So, but this is not in that category, right? The money is there, but you know, it does not cost the town because it is, you know, being used for MMN specific purposes. So, moving on to the next issue here, I see we've got another potentially 20 minutes. Okay, I didn't know how much time we'd have on the mission statement today. I did start preparing a kind of an outline of the broad options anyway, and I'll maybe just cover them, you know, in a very summary fashion, just to maybe prepare for a lengthier review that we can do at our next meeting. But basically, it is something that has come up before in a variety of contexts, and I know in some conversations with Terry in particular that, of course, one of the issues is the town would, in general, like to, you know, start reducing the number of committees. The PEG Access Advisory Committee has really been serving two functions. One is to, you know, be involved with and in a very substantial way, the contract renewal cycle. It's a 10-year contract. Historically, there has been a cable TV committee that has negotiated, or at least been, you know, kind of the prime part of the direct negotiating team, and then basically has been put into suspended animation for 10 years until the next one comes up. So the committee, for instance, before the 2024 contract here was in 2014. If you look at the history of that committee in terms of what they did, the minutes and things of that nature. It's actually relatively spotty just because there's not good committee minutes, and that doesn't apply only to this particular committee. It's just that things really have gotten substantially more organized, I think, in the last 10 years. But in any case, they basically have disbanded in between those contract renewals. On the other hand, they have stayed in session after 2014 to provide, I guess, the overview function for what then was CCTV, which, at that point was a 501c3 corporation. And as such, I believe that they were reporting quarterly. I don't know if they needed to report quarterly in terms of the state requirements. They do have to report annually. And so the Cable TV Committee, at least was involved with that. And in fact, even in some of the same subjects that, we've just been discussing earlier today, what it seems at present in terms of the probably most likely option is that the default position would be to really keep everything as is until a contract is actually signed. And that would be, who knows, TBD. I don't know. Jason, do you have any feel for how long that, when that signing might actually take place?
I don't have an exact timeline, but I can tell you, we're going to be asking the select board on Monday to vote to extend the current contract for 6 months to allow us to complete negotiations. And we have every reason to believe that we'll be able to take care of it in that period of time.
So I'm a little confused about this discussion. Are we looking for the select board to change the charge of this committee?
Yes, yeah, and
That's different than the mission statement. So the charge of our committee is created by the select board, was done in 2018 and updated in 2021.
Yes, and it hasn't changed since then.
Yep.
There are 3 parts to it. One was dealing with the oversight of the contract and Comcast behavior. And part of that issue, of course, was that any complaints that were lodged by Comcast.
So can I ask, have our other 2 members who are newer, have they seen the charge? Are they familiar with it?
Oh,
Erwin? Okay, I do have, and that's one of the things that I didn't expect would come up today. What I am planning to circulate, I do have the charges going back basically, until the dawn of time, which was in
So-
the early 2000s.
So I don't think we need to do that. So the PEG, I mean, the way we do cable television and demand has changed dramatically when the town took that over, right?
Right.
Right, so I don't think what happened before then is really relevant. So my question to Terry Ackerman is, do they think this is the time to change the charge of the PEG Access Committee or what?
Well, we haven't discussed it yet. I think if you folks want to make a change, we will put it on our agenda and we'll discuss it. If not, then we won't. So we don't know yet. What do you guys?
Okay, I just thought it was coming from you, so that's not the case.
No.
I did offer to Vince right before we started the meeting that if Vince or any individual committee member would like us, Julie and I, to do some legwork or do research or help with any way to talk about this so that we can be better prepared at a meeting, we're happy to do that. So if you want us to look to see, because like, you know, we've gone through an evolution here, going from CCTV to MMN, and we've luckily have a huge amount of resources now being a part of the town in terms of management, oversight, accounting, you know, things like that. So it is definitely a different need today than it was 5 or 10 years ago. I think it's a fair question to ask, you know, how, like, what is the role of the committee? We see a lot of value in providing transparency and accountability for the department so that the public knows where the money is spent, and that we can also use this as a means to get out information as to what we're doing, and almost advertising. So we like those things, but I think, yeah, typically you'd have questions about what are the needs from MMN, what are the needs for the community, how do you put those together and come up with a recommendation, and then have the select board kind of weigh in. I know, Terry, you said in the past that the select board are drastically trying to reduce the number of committees because we've sprawled into 60 or 70 committees townwide.
Right. So if, yeah, I mean, so if there's a way that we don't need this committee anymore because times have changed, I'm sure the select board would be happy to fold your duties into another committee or disband it or whatever you want to recommend. Because yeah, we're always looking for ways to reduce the number of committees. That's true.
Well, one
And
of
I think, go ahead, Vince.
the third part of the charge for the PEG Access Committee, and previously really for even the cable TV, again, starting at the top, one was the oversight of Comcast, both for contract renewal purposes and also Comcast performance in terms of meeting the terms of the contract, particularly in regard to the service quality. Second, again, was really the oversight of MMN, and the third was advising the committee, the select board, on changes in the industry structure and technology. And of course, that has changed very substantially. It turns out that that kind of part of the charge has also been addressed in both of the reviews, both the town meeting review that was conducted in 1996, and also the town governance review that was conducted. I think that report was issued in 2014. But those are the ones, of course, that Carmen has on her article there to, you know, review town meeting procedures, you know, as an article for our upcoming town meeting here. So it applies to that, because in the 1996 version, there was a recommendation that was partly implemented but partly not. And that was the recommendation for having a communications committee. And that committee actually, in addition to some of the non-technological issues, also recognized even at that time that technology and the internet, you know, were going to be a force in the future. So that indeed was part of kind of a, you know, a technology's futures recommendation. In the 2017 broader town governance report, there was a recommendation to start a technology committee specifically. And that perhaps was a little bit too focused, because it depends on, you know, all of these terms have different meanings to different people. But, you know, in looking at it a number of times, I thought, well, you know, that sounds like a good idea, but, you know, on reflection, over time, it seemed that it should be something more along the lines of a communications committee, or or to break it down in even a little bit more detail, something along the lines of a connectivity and communications and information committee. Now, there's a good example right next door to us of basically the cable TV committee, or what started with the cable TV committee in Lexington. And their situation is somewhat different from ours because they actually have 3 internet service providers. They have Comcast and Xfinity and also RCN, but I think they've changed their name now. I'm not sure what they changed their name to. But they, in addition to negotiating contracts with 3 different internet service providers, of course, we're the overseers of Lex Media. And that was always a relatively cordial but hands-off at the same time relationship with Lex Media, who is a 501c3 committee. I looked at them particularly in the context of the transition in Concord, and I think Julie mentioned this too, that basically the only really formal oversight that the cable TV committee and now the communications committee really have exercised is, when the various requirements of a 501c3 are required on a quarterly or an annual basis, and the programming of Lex Media is pretty much left to them to really make the major decisions on. And Julie, I don't know if you've have any comments on that, but I think we had a 5-minute conversation one time. But do you have any further thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just came from Lex Media. I worked there for 5 years. And yeah, the big difference is, like you said, it's a nonprofit. So, and the funding was very different there, whereas we're a town here. And from my colleagues who are also town departments or town divisions, they do not have committees. They don't have what we have here. But if I can answer any questions for you about Lex Media. But yes, were you asking, like, did at Lex Media, did the staff make all the programming decisions? Vince, is that what you were asking?
I have noticed over time, one of the things that I've seen maybe change over, a period of 3 or 4 or more years is that the coverage for education, and the PEG has changed. Like they had started something earlier, I know, that you have just picked up on, and that's the group that is doing weather forecasting now. And I think I saw that going away.
So Vince, there's a lot of background and reasons why we sort of had a downtrend in the education part. But under Julie's leadership, I think it's coming back strong.
Yes, yeah, here it is.
That was no failure on the town's part or anything like that. We just had some issues and incidents, and I think we worked our way through it, and now things are going really well. We had it was COVID's plus other things for sure.
Right.
So yeah, I think now have a really strong relationship with the school administration, principals, lots of other people at the school. So, for a number of reasons, I think things are looking really good now.
Great.
So anyway, overall, as we look, at options for the PEG Access Committee, what Lexington is doing, I think also goes beyond Lexington. I think to some extent it's a model for public access TV operations. Another example
So Vince, I
Yeah.
don't quite understand the difference between what Lexington is doing, and what we're doing.
Yes, it's because they are literally called the Communications Committee now.
Right, but I looked at their charge and it's very
Right.
similar. But they have the purview on the, the internet services. The other cable services.
Yes, but it's also that they have, and this is something where they differ with Concord, and that is that they also basically have a much stronger role in managing the website.
No, that's not true.
Is it? Oh, okay.
No.
Correct me.
No, no, the CAC did not have they didn't have a strong role in how things were operated day to day. The executive director would report to them once a month or once every 2 months, kind of keep them informed on what was going on. Did review budget. She gave reports, like I did on this call, what's happening at the station, but they were never, the CAC was never involved in any creative or programming decisions or suggestions. They were hands off.
Right. No, I mean, I don't mean Lex Media. I mean the town website.
Which town?
The town of Lexington.
Lexington. So the Communications Committee, in addition to its responsibilities with CCTV, with Lex Media, also seems to have responsibilities for the town website. That's what I meant by that.
No, they have a communications department there.
Okay.
They actually have a chief information officer, and his job was taking care of the website. They also have a webmaster.
Okay.
So those were town employees, and the CAC was volunteers that would not have, to my knowledge, were not involved with the town of Lexington's website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was something that I missed then, because I noticed that I didn't realize that they had an information manager. I thought that was one of the reasons that maybe that responsibility had been assumed by the communication committee.
No,
Okay.
I know
Yeah.
the name of the committee implies that, but
Right.
no.
So Vince, I was going to say something similar, that the 1996 thing you're referring to, at that time, Concord did not have, I don't think, a chief information officer. We have Jason now doing a lot of that. And I think that he's doing a lot of the supervision of MMN and advising staff and committees on the changing technological and informational world. So things have changed a lot since 1996, and I'm really not sure that this committee would need to do that anymore. But the one thing that you mentioned that I don't know if you're doing enough of it is monitoring Comcast quality of service and their customer service. I don't see a lot of your agendas talking about that, and that is a role that you could be maybe doing more of.
Yeah, I agree. That is something that really, at minimum, in addition to responding to individuals, is probably having some kind of a public hearing on a periodic basis.
Mhm.
To see what issues people were having with the service, and potentially, to the cable TV contract review people with other ISPs in town. One of the things I know that I think Corey Atkins has raised it, a couple of other people at Concord Green, and that's the fact that, and I don't know if it's even offered completely in town now, you see the advertising, and it's from the fixed wireless services now that T-Mobile and AT&T are offering. And, you know, basically what T-Mobile is offering is that you can subscribe to a box that they install in your house, and you use that instead of either Comcast or, you know, Concord broadband as your source of internet service. And they have been doing it in a number of municipalities and Boston area towns, but I actually tried to sign up for it once. They said they weren't covering Concord yet. I did it again a few months later, and they said they were. When I tried it most recently, they say they're not. So I don't know if they're being selective about parts of the town, or whether it's still something that, you know, they haven't gotten around to yet. In any case, the kind of the bottom line on that is that they are a potential source of options in terms of internet service is concerned. You know, if they
Is there any documentation, like how many subscribers they have in Concord who do this, or they would never tell us?
They probably would never tell us, although the number I've seen for people to come in and, you know, try to provide an ISP service is that they at least have the potential of covering 30% of the subscribers in town.
Yeah, sounds like it's gonna be pretty minuscule.
And
We're at 4:32.
Yeah. Okay.
So do we want to review the charge at the next meeting, or what are we gonna do?
that would be my recommendation, is that we pick it up, you know, to discuss it.
Okay,
And I'm wondering too, on next meeting, if there's any other committees that we could fold into, or what, if anyone's proposing anything, or what are we
Mhm.
trying to do?
What that structure should be, you know, when I look at actually what the Envision 2030 plan says about internet service, basically they don't say anything.
well, that's not really, that would be a whole different committee. And there was a committee, Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, to discuss the expansion of Concord Town Internet, is that correct? The task force? The
Yes.
complete-
There was a-
Broadband, right,
Right, so they did complete their work, I think, right?
yes.
They
Okay.
did,
Okay,
yes.
just checking.
And
Yeah.
that is in the process of being implemented. This is kind of the broader, you know, viewpoint on really internet technology in general.
Well, that seems like a,
And how that should be structured, you know, doesn't seem clear. And again, that's an omission in Vision 2030 that the two study committees, you know, potentially could consider as their kind of vision starting point, you know, because it's not only a mission, which is kind of a 5-year plan. It's also, you know, what is the purpose of that 5-year plan? What are you know, really trying to achieve? And actually, it's not just communicating, it's a bunch of use cases, like what is going to happen to healthcare, you know, in Concord in the next 10 years.
why don't you circulate the charge to the committee? And then if you have, any of us have suggested changes, additions, whatever, let's discuss that then.
Indeed.
Okay,
Okay, so having discussed it, We don't really, let's see, do we have any liaison
You have me,
activities?
Nancy Pierce.
Hi,
Oh, I'm
Nancy.
sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was public comment. I'll wait.
No, go ahead, because I think they're going to be a combination of things.
Yeah, okay. I don't want to take, obviously you don't have any time to take this up at your current meeting, but I wanted to raise it as part of the budget discussion, so maybe it could be a future agenda item, because it's just for my curiosity and also in case I ever have to report on it again. It seems as if, but I didn't get a copy of the budget, so I don't know. It seems as if there's basically little or no compensation to the regional school district for the use of the studio. Because there's a certain maintenance cost associated with the studio being in the high school. And I wanted to see if I could clarify that. Because Carlisle has quite a major investment, not only in the bonding for the cost. I think that's something like 1 or 2% of the square footage of the high school, and in what the considerable maintenance of the building itself. And I wanted to clarify that there's not any compensation going on there. And if there's no compensation going on there, if there is some, I don't know, modification of the fees that Carlisle pays for services to compensate for the fact that Concord controls what used to be a joint asset. That's one thing. The other thing I just wanted to say, to clarify, I remember when this committee first started, I remember Carlin talking about how it's virtually impossible to get data from Comcast about consumer complaints. And the only way that the town would ever know was if somebody reported it to the committee. But, I'm not completely clear on that because it was a couple of years ago and I don't have my notes. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. I don't want to take any more time because I know you've gone over time.
Jason, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to speak to the maintenance costs. So we do have an agreement between the town and the regional school district on the use of the facility. We do pay for maintenance and some facility costs to maintain that area so that the school doesn't have to. But you're right, there is obviously, like, both parties are getting something out of the arrangement. Some office space and studio space for us, but also the benefit for the students to participate in the media program there on the campus without having to leave. So that's just the agreement that's been in place. It's been signed and
Yeah.
in effect for a few years now.
Okay,
Well, Jason, is MMN still providing some services for Carlisle in terms of like town meeting coverage, things of that nature?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Town meeting and
Yeah.
other services.
but Carlisle pays for it from the PEG access funds. That's
Right.
just what I wanted to get clear. Thank you.
Terry?
I have a couple of questions, briefly, or comments. I see this new, Municipal Empowerment Act from the state, and, it's just, I don't even know if it's passed or it's a governor's proposal or whatever, but it says enables spending of PEG access funds without appropriation. So I just want to make everyone aware of that. I don't know if this is a proposal, if this is law now. I don't know what's going on, but it is part of our presentation the select board will be hearing on Monday night. It's in the packet. I didn't know about that provision at all until just now. And the other thing that's happening Monday night, I want to clarify with Jason. It looks like the select board we are supposed to both deny the routine renewal and also get apply for the extension, and we're doing it all at that same meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
And Sue and I will be there virtually.
Okay, because I had heard it was going to be 2 separate meetings to do that, but we're going to do it both at that meeting.
Right. The two
Okay.
separate meetings were, one, the hearing to get the feedback for the select
Right.
board, and then 2, yep.
Okay, thank you.
I know the Municipal Empowerment Act is not law yet, but it is proposed.
Okay, great.
Yeah, which is a potential source of some funding, actually. And the other thing that's pending on the state level is that there is an act which has been proposed to tax streaming services like Netflix. And I didn't realize that that was really, within the state's capability, but apparently it is, at least potentially. So that's something I think that we should really express. And I know that they're all aware of it, but, Senator Barrett and Representative Cataldo and Gentile to really, try to get through the legislature if they can, because again, that is a source of revenue, potential revenue for MMN. Okay, and let's see, I do not see, do we have any public people here? I don't see anybody. If not, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second, Cynthia? Yay or nay?
She's gone.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
And I, yay. So we are adjourned.